Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to She Rox It. My name is Roxy Ayers. I do a lot of these shows talking about moments where we can be a blessing to other people. And not in the ways that maybe it's not because there are people who do bless people financially or physically. They help them move from across town. And you know what's messed up is honestly, 90% of the time, you know how like you help somebody move, you think, when I move, they're going to help me move. It's not always that way. And it's so funny. I would say probably never has anybody helped us move that we help move 1,000 times. And I say we, but I'm saying my husband because you know I'm not doing any of it. I'm just criticizing from afar. But I think that we have so many opportunities to hear people's words and then converse. There are a lot of times where people just talk and they don't require, any back and forth. And I say that about myself a lot. I'm like, honestly, I don't require any reciprocation in the conversation because I talk to myself. But it's more like, I think I spend a lot more time listening than people would imagine. And it's the reason I'm able to get to know people on a different level. It helps my soul to be a blessing to them in that way. Because I'm not going to be able to help them move. I'm not going to be able to help them do a lot of things. But I can do that. And I can share what I know. And I try really hard to make sure, and I would recommend this. I try really hard to not project any specific belief system on anybody. I'd rather, focus on something that everyone might think is a positive direction. Granted, there are times where people can be very down and feeling really crappy and they're morose and they're upset about everything and as an MSer, listening to an MSer can be quite exhausting. My father, he's so funny. He told me, he's like, you know what those people are? I said, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, have you ever had that moment where people, they come up, and this is my dad, okay? They come up and they talk to you and you're, telling you all kinds of crazy stuff. And then you realize you're there and you've been captive for an hour. And then you know what those people are, Roxanne? So what, Dad? He says, those are time robbers. And I said, Dad, time robbers. But then as I grew up, I've met so many time robbers. It's been crazy. But hey, it's okay though, because I'm kind of used to them because of what I did. So I don't look at it the same way as some people do. It's not always time robbing. It's more they need to purge a lot of their feelings. But there's a difference between a good, healthy, purge, or then people who just want to hear their own voice, and they can steal a half an hour from you without you even realizing it. And you go, well, and this is what he does after he calls them a timer. So then they're time robbers, and then you go, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna get that half an hour back. And I start laughing, and I'm like, Dad, yeah. But like I said, over the years, I've seen it. I have seen people be that way. But it's not even about that. What it's more about is you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And they might be venting their face off, and you might be wanting to put some earplugs in and smile, like you're hearing it. But it might be the one thing that meant something to them that week. I used to deal with an insane amount of homeless people. I don't want to say insane like a billion or a million or whatever, but I would say probably about 40% of the people I would help were either, homeless, or they didn't have anywhere to be, and they were also just a disenfranchised kind of community. But then they suffer from some severe mental health that usually goes hand in hand with the homelessness. So it's, and I used to frustrate me so bad when people would be ugly about these individuals standing on the side of the road begging. And it does get agitating sometimes when they stare at you through your window, and they look at you, and you're looking around like, what can I give them? I don't have any change. I don't have a dollar. I don't know if I even want to get, what's he going to do with it? But some of these people will say, oh, they're just going to go drink it. And I'm doing it with my dad's voice because it kind of sounds like him, something he'd say. And what it is that, yeah, okay, maybe they do. But then it is your opportunity to look at it differently. That man is begging in the middle of the snow for hours for some money to go buy some booze. But did you know, after talking to him, you would realize he suffers from severe mental health issues. And he is unable, he doesn't have the wherewithal to find these little networks in these places where he might be able to get affordable support, or maybe he doesn't know how to apply for Medicaid, and it can be very terrifying too. That's a lot of bureaucratic messiness. So this man found it easier to be covered in wet, we call it snow dirt, for hours, asking for $1 or 50 cents or whatever, so they can go get that bottle to make those noises and those voices in his head be a little more quiet, so he could sleep through the night. And maybe it's so he could sleep through the night because it's going to be cold. It was cold today, and it was, it wasn't cold today, but at that time, maybe the whole day was cold because he was in that stuff. But you imagine when the sun goes down, it's going to be a son of a gun. So yeah, he is begging for your pennies so that he can get a bottle. But there are layers to people. And so really, honestly, my point is that there are a lot of opportunities to be a decent human being in these moments, instead of somebody who's like a cynic and crappy and like, oh, this guy is sitting there begging for money on the side of the road. Oh, he's awful. But think about us. Think about how people look at us when we are down and out because of our health, and we had a rough day, so we look like somebody who just fell off of a freaking hayride or something. And we don't mean to look that way. Maybe our words aren't there the way that we want them to be because we're so exhausted from our MS. Wouldn't we like for somebody to give us the benefit of the doubt? It's easy enough to tell people they need to do these things, but it's kind of like it's tricky. It's tricky. And I brought up the homeless thing, and, you know, I'm sure there are a lot of people who have MS that are homeless, you know, and oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine being homeless and having to be out in the friggin' sun all day begging for money. I would do whatever I had to do not to do that. But this is the life that somebody lives. And nobody gets to be the director of your lifestyle. Nobody gets to be the one who decides what your trajectory is in life. Like I said, there are layers to people. Yes, they're time robbers, or they're beggars, or they're this, but they're human beings with problems like us, but different. You know, everybody's got their things. You know, like I have people who, honestly, one of my better friends, you know, he's a better friend, but he's more just always kind of been around, and we love him no matter what. And he struggles from some insane mental health stuff, and he does drink. He does drink to keep his days calm. He'll still go out and work, but when he's at home in the quiet by himself in his head, the silence is deafening. So maybe a little extra beer or vodka makes the night kind of come together a little quieter. And I'm not trying to should on everybody and tell them that they're not thinking right or whatever, because it's up to your discretion, and never put yourself in danger. You know? But just like us as MSers, and all of us look so different with our MS, don't we? You know, we have some people who can walk and run like my sister, and she's awesome. And then she can work, she can see, she can do all these things. And hey, don't get me wrong, I've had my moments, I've mentioned it before, where I'm like, why? I'm not a horrible person. Why do I have to deal with all this stuff? And she doesn't have to deal. But you know what? She doesn't have the same tools I do. I had all the tools I needed from what I used to do to be an MS or to be a disabled person, to do it. I always joke about segueing into disability seamlessly because of my job. So it's a weird braggy thing, but those are my layers. I hate to compare it to an onion, because an onion just makes you freaking cry, or it smells awful, and then, you know, it's on your hands, and then you can smell it all day, even though you wash them. And so I don't want to do an onion. I'm not sure what kind of layers we're going to talk about, and I don't know why I even went on that friggin' crazy train, but we all have pieces to us, and everything we feel is real. You know, I mean, I'm sure there are people who struggle with mental health stuff and they can't think right, and maybe it's not real what they're seeing, but to them it's so real. And that bottle of vodka, or that little extra, you know, anything makes those days go by a little faster. And, you know, think about us as MSers and how we sit at home sometimes, and we don't have anybody there, and then we can't drive because of whatever reason. And so we're kind of at the mercy of other people. And we don't want to be beggars. We don't want to be able to beg for life and stuff like that. It's horrible. And, you know, even just going down the stairs, it's a little disheartening, because you know, you're like, I'm out of here. I always joke about this, and I think it's really funny. But I mean, my husband doesn't think it's funny, of course, because makes fun of him a little bit. But when you're married for a long time and you're an MSer, there are so many layers of arguments, so many layers of life choices and things that can be a pain in the ass. And I don't know. It's crazy. You can't explain it to people what it's like, but when I'm talking to people about my husband and I'm irritated, I'm like, I am going to give you a day in the life of Roxanne. Roxanne is sitting at home for half the day, probably watching horrible reality television. I'm not going to claim the Kardashians are all I watch, but there's something about that dysfunction I can't not watch. So anyways, I am feeling my day, and then my husband comes home, and for whatever reason, we end up in an argument, because we're moody people as MSers sometimes, but it's usually because there's some kind of sensory overload happening. Maybe the music was loud at the same time that the dog was barking, and then your body was feeling like crap, because our bodies are working overtime, people. It's the truth. And I joke with people, but this is a serious thought in my head. And when I get tired of my husband, I'm like, you know what? I'm out of here. I am done. I can't handle this. And it's been 15 years, so don't believe that never happens to anybody else, too. It's been married a long time. I'm so sick of this. I am out of here. Blah, 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 blah. And then you go, but by the way, I think you're going to have to help me down the stairs. And actually, if you give me a ride to the bus station, and, I might need $20 so I can pay for it. I don't know, dude. So, you get what I'm saying? There are layers and layers of it. And then what happens is then by the time you get through all these things, you forget where you started. Just go back to the full onion of the thing. Not the one layer, the nitpicking pieces by pieces by pieces, moments by moments. But there are enlightening moments, like when I do try to run away and I'm mad and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I probably biff it on the way trying to get out. And biff it's a Colorado thing, it means fall. When you're trying to go out the door and storm out and I'm so sick of it, I'm going for a walk. And I get like a half of freaking, I don't even know, probably about like a quarter of I don't get very far in my protest for the way I felt like I was being treated. But the cool thing about walking, it gives you an opportunity to meditate on the things that you were just dealing with, and it clears your mind a little bit. And then you're just embarrassed. And then you go back in the house, and honestly, your husband actually never left you. He's just hanging out waiting for you to get through your feelings. And you get up the stairs because he helped you. You get in the house, and then you sit down, and you realize you're a little cold. So you ask your husband to hand you a blanket. And the onion, the whole piece, makes a lot of sense. But it's hard for people to understand how many layers of crazy we have with our onion, our MS onion. It's nuts, like, because we have, things like different types of things, different types of the disability. We have the vision stuff and the feet stuff, and then the emotional stuff, and then the TV, and then the dog, and then the sister is calling to tell you about her entire life, and it's exhausting because you wish you could do those things. But think of it like this. We need to take those moments to take that little walk. Maybe it's not a walk, but just to really meditate on how you got there in a realistic way. Because, oh my goodness, in my head, I hear things so backwards. And my husband is like, what language are you speaking? What are you hearing from me? Because I didn't say that. And I have a pretty short memory when it comes to the things I say, especially when they're awful. But he is exactly what I need, because he knows how to rein me in, thank God. But let's take it all the way back to the beginning of this. homeless people that are begging for money, and people are ridicule them and they're crappy to them, and they're begging for money so they can go buy booze. And then you take a minute to really pay attention, and they're doing it because they're trying to medicate themselves, because they are disenfranchised, because they do not have the same opportunities or the same wherewithal to move forward in life. So they're stuck in their head with the voices, with the crazy. I would drink a bottle of vodka for that one, 100%. So, but then you run into the different people who are time robbers. Then they just want to share until they're blue in the face, or until you're blue in the face. But they might have things they need to shed. They have things they need to share so they can get it out of their head. And if you can be that person for someone like that, and MSers, we're good for that. We'll do some talking. But why not? Love people. Love people. The Creator wants us to love each other, you know. It's just hard because we're all so different, and we have so many different needs and so many different problems and so many different time robbers. And then you go into the situation where you're just an MS or sitting on your couch watching bad reality television when your husband storms in and makes noise, and then makes the dogs bark and makes all kinds of havoc and whatever else, and then the sensory overload. And if you're not familiar with sensory overload, what that is, if you think about it, your body is working overtime. Every part of you is agitated, even though you don't know it or you can't feel it. Nothing is working the way it should. And so your mind and your body are miscommunicating hardcore, and there are no words for it. And then you add extra pieces, like the dog, like the husband, like the whatever. Oh my gosh, the layers of that are just insane. So that's why we need to take a mental walk. We need to take a moment, think about where we started, think about why you love somebody, why you care, or why you might want to listen to somebody that is having troubles, even though it's not your problem. And we just have to love one another. If the world could be more like that, I'm not perfect. I mean, I get an attitude really fast. It doesn't matter. It's neither here nor there. I just have issues, and I want to hear somebody to hear what I'm thinking about it. And 9 times out of 10, I don't really have anything to stand on. But I don't know it until I do the walkabout of my crazy talk, and I have to come back where I began and figure it all out. But the main reason I'm sharing this is an opportunity for you to learn, or think about learning, how to listen. And listening, yes, is hearing what they're saying, but then really marinating on it, and then giving them a response that is specific to what they were talking about, instead of just nodding and saying, oh yeah, that's why, blah, blah, blah. And it's not always the thing. It's not always, it's not always possible. But I think if we can make this time with people for whatever reason, whatever kind of issues they're having, and like I said, MSers all the time, we're frustrated all the time. Our bodies are working overtime. And I can't imagine if you're one of those people who had to get the assistance to do anything or everything. Or one of these people, and I talked about this last time, these people who were in these storms and lost their whole existence. They said that houses and houses were destroyed in the Irma, hurricane thing. And if we can do our best to just build from the bottom up, and listen and engage and just reciprocate somebody's conversation. Don't let somebody just sit there and just, yammer on because they're they're waiting for you to respond. Usually the thing that they're talking about isn't exactly at all what they want to talk about. They just have to get through their layers and then they'll get there. I think the biggest thing here, bar none, is we have very limited control over our lives. But you do have control. Thank God. And there are people who don't have this either. You have control on how you bless people, how you love people. And when I say love them, I'm not meaning that you need to go hug a bunch of strangers or whatever, but it is still love for the Creator, for the earth, for just happiness, well-being. Be a positive note on that. We can be very grumpy MS people because we're mad. We're mad that we, fell down trying to be a, brat and storming out. We are mad because we can't do some of the cooking that we used to. We are mad that we can't do the job we used to do. But start listening for those voices, for that voice in your stomach, for that nudge. That nudge to be a better version of yourself, and you'll feel better. You will feel better and you'll feel happier, and because you're not marinating on sadness and madness and grumpiness. And I'm not perfect. I told you, I'll storm out and be all irritated. But today's a new day. Today's a new day to thank God that you can do something. I can't do walking well. I can't do, one of my hands are numb all the time. Can't do that well, but I can talk and I can love and I can share. So start over today. Every day's a do-over. You wake up, start fresh. It's not always going to be good, but let's focus on the positive as much as we can. Because we have so much to be bummed out about sometimes. If you have kids, you have grandchildren, you have people that you watch blossom and do well, that can fill your soul if you let it. That can fill your time. And just listen to people, or kind of try to look at things from their perspective. Because you'll be better, you'll be healthier. You won't be angry or irritated or feel like you're being robbed of your time, like my dad says. So anyways, and my dad's like, they're time robbers. Okay, guys, well, I'm pretty sure I'm up to the point where I need to sign off, but I appreciate you guys checking in and having a listen, and hopefully I was an encouragement to someone in a way where they're going to have a better day tomorrow. So, okay, guys, I'll check in again. All right, thank you. Bye.